Welcome, and thank you for tuning in to the Sunday services at Center for Spiritual Living, Denver. We are a loving and prospering community in the heart of Denver and online. We now conduct hybrid services at the historic Grant Avenue Community Center and Sacred Place, located at 216 South Grant Street, Denver, Colorado. All are welcomed here. A place, space, and face of love. We are a spiritual community practicing universal principles that enrich our lives. We are grateful that you have blessed us with your presence. While online, we'd love to know you're watching with us. Feel free to leave a comment and let everyone appreciate you. With everything going on, life can feel overwhelming. CSL Denver wants you to know we are here for you. Please know that our practitioners are available for personal prayer work. Our licensed spiritual practitioners' names and phone numbers are available on our website at csldenver.org. Or if you have a prayer request, feel free to email it to info@csldenver.org. For your convenience, you'll find clickable links in the description of this broadcast. Rev Elzia, along with all our guest speakers, practitioners, service coordinators, and musical inspirations, want you to know how truly grateful we are that you are with us today. Thank you for your continued support and participation in our services, workshops, and events, as well as providing financial contributions to our center. If you're interested in upcoming events and information, we send out weekly newsletters. Sign up by visiting www.csldenver.org. We deliver services in a hybrid format where we meet in person at 216 South Grant Street. We will also continue to live stream all services on Facebook and YouTube every Sunday. Find us on our respective channels as well as on New Thought Media Network. Again, thank you for your precious attention. Now prepare for engaging enlightenment.
There is a garden where dreams come true, a beautiful garden where God's grace blooms. There is a garden where everything grows, a beautiful garden where love is sown. And in this place of light and love, you can have anything that you're dreaming of. There is a garden where dreams come true, a beautiful garden. That garden is you. And in this place of light and love, you can have anything that you're dreaming of. There is a garden where dreams come true. A beautiful garden, that garden is you. Such a beautiful garden, that garden is you.
Thank you, Eddie Watkins. It's a trick. So I invite you to, let's move into an invocation. So I just invite you to sit back in your seats and close your eyes if it's comfortable. And just move into that space and that place that is always here. We are just turning our attention to it more. And just knowing the truth of who each one of us is, that Spirit is moving, living, and breathing each one of us. And that as we move into this service, knowing that we are all gardens of the divine, that we are the flourishing flowers that will be coming up in the spring, showing their beauty and their light and their smells and all that they are, and knowing that we are that, we are part of that. And so I bless this service. I bless Reverend Elzia's talk. I bless the music by Susan Clark. I bless everybody who has chosen to be here this morning, whether in person or online, just knowing that it is about feeding our souls and moving into the more that we can be. And I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful for this time together. I'm so grateful for each person here. And I release this into that one mind, that one heart, knowing that all is well and it is done. And so it is.
So it is.
So my reading this morning comes from Ernest Holmes' book, this thing called Life. I think it's got a new name now, but it's chapter 3. And this is the story about the fish. And I love this story. So I'm sharing it with you. Life goes on, but are we making the most of this thing called life? We can imagine a fish being told that he is surrounded by water, but not quite realizing what this means. We can imagine such a fish swimming north, south, east, and west in search of water. If we think of this fish as a person, we can even imagine him looking up the books of fish lore, studying fish psychology and philosophy, always endeavoring to discover just where the waters of life are and how to approach them. Perhaps some wise old fish might say, it has come down to us through tradition that in ancient times our ancestors knew about a wonderful ocean of life. They prophesied a day when all shall live in the waters of life happily forever. And can't we imagine all the other fish getting together, rolling their eyes, wiggling their tails, looking wise and mysterious and beginning to chant, "Oh, water, 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 we beseech you to reveal yourself to us. We beseech you to flow around and through us, even as you did in the days of our revered ancestors." As a matter of fact, we are in the waters of infinite life as the fish is in the ocean. The spirit of life is all around us. It flows through us. It permeates everything. It is the essence of all form and flows through every condition. And yet we are still looking for it. What we look for, we unwittingly look at, but fail to recognize. Life is pure intelligence. Life creates by making things out of itself. Life, which is spirit or intelligence, is the sole and only creative agency in the universe. And since it is all life, it has all life to give you. It loves you because in creating you, it has given some part of itself to you. You are dear to life, beloved by it. In creating you, it has poured itself into you. You could not ask for greater love than this, and more love could not be given. The intelligence of life is our intelligence. It is the very presence of inspiration, guidance, direction. It is waiting for us to use it, to make itself manifest in our lives. This does not mean that it seeks to control us. It merely waits for us to use it. And a quote from Dr. Ernest Holmes from Love and Law. Do not seek to find God away off somewhere. You will never do it. Stop right where you are and realize that God is within you, operating everything, the spirit and life essence of everything, and wait right there for that power to manifest itself into conviction. And so it is. And now we have Susan Clark singing.
So, I wrote a song with Ernest Holmes. I actually went through the big book, the Science of Mind book one day, and I was reading about faith and belief, and almost all of the lyrics in this song are Ernest's words. I embellished a little here and there. I actually called, at the time I called the Science of Mind archives to ask them if it was okay if I used Ernest Holmes' words in an original song, and they said yes, go right ahead. So I did. And this song is called Believe, and It Shall Be Done. Oh yeah. Believe, and it shall be done. Oh, believe, and it shall be done. Believe, and it shall be done. Accept and let it be. Accept and let it be. Act as though you are. Oh, act as though you are. Act as though you are. Act and you will be. Oh, act and you will be. God's words are yea and amen. God's words are yea and amen. God's words are yea and amen. Look where you're going and not where you've been. Look where you're going and not where you've been. The law is, but it must be used. The law is, but it must be used. The law is, and it must be used. Let God's greatness wash over you. Let God's greatness wash over you. Faith without works will die. You know, faith without works will die. Faith without works will die. To create, you must learn how to try. To create, you must learn how to fly. God's words are yea and amen. God's words are yea and amen. God's words are yea and amen. Look where you're going and not where you've been. Look where you're going and not where you've been. Believe, and it shall be done. Oh, believe, and it shall be done. Believe, and it shall be done. Accept and let it be. Accept and let it be. Accept and set yourself free. Believe and it will be done. Yes, folks, we are recording live, so a few imperfections here and there, but as we know, it's all perfect, just the way it is right now. Thank you.
Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome to CSL Denver, a place, a space, and a face of love, a spiritual community teaching ancient wisdom and utilizing universal principle to empower our lives and the lives of others. We are so happy that you are here today to help us celebrate one of my favorite times at the beginning of the year as we go through the back to basics. Now, this time of year, almost all of the centers, if not all of them, are going back to basics. And we're using the title for the monthly theme, Roots and Reboot. Roots and Reboot, so that we begin to dig deeper roots into these teachings and begin to reboot or reblossom or rebirth these ideas in our lives. Now, today's talk is how it works. Now, last week, Reverend Millie talked about the thing itself. And I love the term the thing itself because man has come up with these fancy names for God, like God or Allah or Yahweh or pick one, right? But the moment we label something, we've already diminished it. We've already put it in parameters. We've already put it in a box. And if God is all there is, then there is no box that's big enough to put God in. So the term, the thing itself, is very appropriate. It's very appropriate because it allows you to point to, call out, signify anything, and it has a reflection of the divine. Now, as we go through these basic teachings, which sum up the whole book that Ernest wrote. I mean, he could have given us these first 45 pages and got rid of the other almost 300 and 400 pages, and we just dive deep into those, we would be fine, right? Because we have the thing itself, how it works, what it does, and how to use it. So that's a little preview of where we're going with this. But today we're going to focus on how it works. So the first thing that we need to set this in motion is this. We live in a spiritual universe. As such, God is all there is, all possibility, all action. For God, the living spirit is the invisible source and substance of all things. It is the first thing that came on board. It is the cause behind all causes. And when we think about Ernest Holmes wrote in the first Science of Mind magazine in 1927. He said this. If you could bring that first slide up for me. Ernest said this: I believe that the universal spirit, which is God, operates through a universal mind, which is the law of God, and that I am surrounded by this creative mind, which receives my direct impress of my thoughts onto it, and then it acts upon it. Now that's a lot, right? But if you put it real simply, it's kind of like if you ever had silly putty when you were growing up. They had this thing when I was growing up called silly putty. It's like a big, and you could stretch it, and then you could press it on the comics in the Sunday papers, and it would print it on that silly putty, the colors and all. So this whole thing about the direct imprint, that's what we're talking about. Not that we're silly putty. Now, I'm not calling anybody silly putty, so let's just make that clear. But that process of using the silly putty or that image of something being directly impressed on something, and then it's able to take that information in, is what we're talking about on how we use this, right? So it allows us to move forward in a way that is automatic, if we think about it. when I pushed the silly putty on the paper, the only thought was to get the impression. And so that's what we're looking to do here when we figure out how this thing works, how it works. So when we see that we live in a spiritual universe which responds to our direct imprints, and that we work with the reality whether we understand it or not, whether we study it or not, whether we pray to it or not, whether we ignore it, it is still working. It is still working because it is said that at the center of all things, God is the essence. We all say in this teaching, there is no place where God is not. There is no place where God is not. And so we begin to see how interconnected all things are. We begin to move beyond appearances and we begin to see the allness of God. We begin to see the allness of God. And so when we look at this next slide, it kind of brings it into focus that there is one infinite life acting through law. And this law is mental. This law is mind in action. We are surrounded by an infinite, subconscious, impersonal, neutral, plastic, and ever-present thinking stuff from which all things come, and which in its original state permeates all things. Now that was a mouthful. My mouth got tired trying to say it. But if I tried to just shorten that up, you can't hide from God, and God definitely ain't trying to hide from you. Wherever you are, God is there. So our job when we begin to figure out how to make this thing work is we have to engage. We have to engage. It's every time I have this conversation about this thing, when I talk about this engagement, I think about Star Trek. And that's what we're like on a Star Trek. The way this thing works is kind of like Star Trek. We have to set a course and engage. But after Captain says engage, there's one other thing he says: make it so. So it takes more than just making a declaration or having an idea. And we'll talk a little bit about that later. You have to have that, but that you got to go beyond that when we're looking at how this thing works. How this thing works. And this thing we're talking about is the thing itself. God, Spirit, the allness of life. And when we can really get this point of how it works, and we have a faith and belief in the divine, the rest of it almost takes care of itself automatically. Automatically, if you know how it works. And so when that happens, we can move in a different light. You know, today we really honor and celebrate the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King's birthday, although the national holiday is tomorrow. His birthday is today. And as I was thinking about the way things work, I was thinking about Dr. King in this context of his celebration. And I remembered this one quote that's always stuck out to me. He said, "Take the first step in faith. Take the first step in faith. You don't need to see the whole staircase to start the journey. But you got to take that first step in faith, knowing and understanding that the staircase is there." That's how this thing works. You have to have some faith to make it happen. You have to take a step. We talk about these laws of correspondence and respondence and all of that. Well, if I don't give it something to respond to, or if I don't give some kind of correspondence to it, nothing's going to happen, so to speak, right? Because we know God is always working. But at a manifest level, there has to be that corresponding action and reaction, that cause and effect. We can give it many different names. That's the beauty of these universal principles when we look at how they work, because there's so many metaphors and there's so many stories and there's so many names to describe them, which is great because some people like red grapes and some people like green grapes, right? Just think, I don't like green grapes, and if the magic only came in the green grapes, I'm gonna be with no magic at all. I'm gonna be begging y'all to do all my magic because I can't do it. But we have to step with faith. And we know that when we step with faith, no matter what it looks like, no matter how the situation presents itself, the sweetness of the divine is enclosed in it. The sweetness of the divine is closed in it. And so when we think about this statement by Dr. King, this next slide, which is by Ernest Holmes, kind of echoes this same thing. By impressing our thoughts upon this substance, we can cause it to produce for us that which we think. Impressing our thoughts upon it is not an external act. For when we impress our thoughts upon ourselves, we are thinking into it. This is because of the unity of all mind. The unity of all mind. So one example I like to give is the body, right? This is one unit, right? But in this unit are various individuals or systems, whether we look at it, no matter which level we go, right? Respiratory, circulatory, elimination, limbic system, or we can even go down to the cells, right? But each one of those things are self-contained. They take care of themselves, but they understand how the process works. The lungs know that if it gets mad and say, well, look, I just ain't gonna breathe no more. I quit right now. No more breathing. Every other thing in the body is going to rebel. The heart is not going to get enough oxygen. The cells are not going to get enough oxygen. There's not going to be a circulation. And so by the lungs getting mad, everybody's going to suffer. But when we understand that there's a corresponding relationship between everything in unity, then we understand that this is how it works. There is no one-way street. At least if there's a one-way street going this way, if you go down the road a bit, there's another one coming back this way. There has to be this flow, this unique way that God expresses itself. And so when we are able to step into that kind of belief, we can rely on the words of the master teacher Jesus. Jesus said, it is done unto you as you believe. This is how it works. You have to have belief. You have to have trust. And there is plenty of evidence around the whole universe that lets us know that it works, that there's something there for us to tap into. I just saw a special on PBS the other day. It was talking about one of the things was it was talking about the James Webb telescope that we launched not too long ago. And it's been able to look out to another galaxy that's similar to ours that has now disintegrated. They can tell by the dust rings and everything. But the interesting thing about it, it was in that habitable zone, right, which gives the idea that there could be life there, but it was 8 billion years old. That's twice as old as we are. We are only 4 billion years old. So when you think about the idea of life, the idea of intelligence and how this thing works, it's ever moving. It's not stopping. It's not standing still because we don't want to go. It's like if you're at the train station, they blow the horn, all aboard. Now, if you're messing around, trains leaving the station, you're going to have to either wait for the next one or look for other means of transportation. And that's how this thing works. You have to be engaged. You can't find excuses and all of that, because you will get left behind. So in essence, the thing itself, this invisible force, awakens within us, and it awakens for us, and it unleashes ourselves onto the world. It unleashes ourselves into the world. And that's whether it's done consciously or unconsciously. Because the mind works in a way, whether it's conscious or unconscious. That's for those of us who are students of the dream and the students of the waking light. One is conscious, one is unconscious. And in that unconscious realm, when you step into dreams, they say dreams only last about 10 seconds, 20 seconds. A real deep, serious dream. But it seemed like, or it can seem like, an immense amount of time has happened. And this is something that's happening in 10, 20, 30 seconds of REM space. So the idea of how this thing works is an exact replica of that. It's an exact replica of that. And so what we must do to get this thing called life, this thing called God, the thing itself to actually work, we have to engage it. We have to engage it, and then we must embody it. It must become us. This way of living in curiosity, this way of living in adventure. Pushing the limits, if you will, taking the first step, not knowing or not seeing the whole staircase, but knowing that when I take that step, the next step will appear. How many of you have had that happen in your life? You get pushed into a way, you get pushed into a step, and I know for me, most of the time I go begrudgingly, because I'm like, ooh, that look like a cliff over there. I don't think I want to go too close. But something just compels me to take that step. And when I do, the next one appears, or the next person appears, or the next job appears. And then before you know it, where I was walking gingerly and not too balanced, now I'm running. Because I know in faith, the next thing is going to be there. That's how this works. But as they say in a lot of the self-help programs, it only works if you work it. It only works if you work it. You got to work it. And so when we look at this next slide and we think about this engagement process, we think about this. Creation moves from the invisible reality to visible form. Ideas come together and, like seeds, bring forth form with them. So ideas and thoughts come first, which are activated by the law, producing an abundance of form. So it works as us. Everything we think, say, and feel, consciously or unconsciously, is continuously feeding and directing the creation of our lives. So in essence, there's no escape. You can't get away if you tried. Because as we said, there you go, there it is. There you are. And so what that leads us to this place of how do we step into life? How do we step into this creative process of how this thing itself works, of how this infinite spirit, this infinite intelligence, this life-giving source, so that when we engage it, we just say yes. That's all we can say is yes. And so bring up the next slide, which shows this very quickly. This is just one example of the Science of Mind teaching symbol. Like most people just say, oh, that's the Science of Mind symbol. But it's really called the Science of Mind teaching symbol, because right now it shows this the spirit, the soul, and the body, but it also has seed, soil, plant. There are many different concepts that goes at these various levels. And so what we're learning here from this, if we look at it as the top as the seed, we have soul here, seed, the soil, and the plant. The seed is that idea. It's the thing that anchors anything. And so let us look at these spiritual truths here, and let's begin to unravel how this process works, this creative process. And so the first truth that we need to understand, or the thing that we need to look at, is the seed, the idea, the thought, the vision, the dream. That is the seed. That is the thing that kicks the process off. And the thing to remember is this: everything the seed needs is already within itself. The seed doesn't need anything outside of itself to tell it who it is. An orange seed knows it's going to produce oranges. Apple seeds know it's going to produce apples. And so everything the seed needs is already there. Everything we need, we already have. But for it to reach its potential, it must be nurtured. That seed has to be nurtured. We see the story in the Bible where they're walking along and the seeds drop, and some fall on fallow land and some fall on good soil, and then somebody walks by with a pot that's broken, it waters them, and boom, next thing you know, one place you got nothing, the other place you got thorns, the other place you got flowers. That seed has to be nurtured for it to reach its full potential, which means we have to nurture ourselves, our ideas, our thoughts, our dreams, our visions, because those are the seeds that are coming from the Spirit, coming from God, the thing itself that allows us to look at life differently every day. And for it to reach the manifestation, now you can have a good seed and you can kind of nurture and take care and make the wind don't blow, but you also have to plant the seed. I'm sitting here hungry, but I got a storehouse full of corn and wheat and rye, and I'm complaining that I can't eat. But I ain't never planted the seeds. How many of you got seeds that you've never planted? To learn a new language, to make more money, to play an instrument. All those ideas in your head are seeds, but you got to plant them. And that leads to the next thing. When I plant them, it leads to the soil. The soil is the environment or the resources that we find ourselves in, or what we try to get for ourselves. Now, one thing about the soil is non-discriminatory. It will grow weeds, it will grow flowers, it'll grow fruit. It has no preference. You in the soil will produce. And the same with us. If we put an idea in the mind and environment, whether it's conscious or unconscious, whether it's physical or ethereal, it will start growing the seed according to the environment it's in. How many people, parents, I bet you everybody raised their hand, told you don't hang out with so-and-so, that little boy's a bad influence. I don't want you to go down there and hang out in that park down there, because that park down there, they got all kind of activity. That's a bad environment. Because they knew that the elements in that environment, although the constructs of it, the playground was a nice construct, but the resources and the elements within that environment were not as conducive as they could be. So they wanted you to stay away. Of course, that's the first thing you did, is ran down there, because they told you don't go down there. And you just hope they don't catch you, or you hope that Miss Johnson down the street don't see you and go back and tell. But that's the environment. It has to be a wholesome environment. And that environment is good. There's something in it that has the power to activate what's in the seed. It the seed at that point. The seed doesn't need to do anything, because remember we said everything the seed needs is within itself. But when it's put in the right environment, it's self-actualized. It begins to grow. It germinates. It produces. And so when we got a good seed that we took care of and we've nurtured and we put it in some great soil environment, then the next thing we get is inevitable. It's a plant, a manifestation, some type of form. And that's what we are in essence. We are a plant of the divine, a God plant. God had an idea of humanity and what we would produce and what we would manifest, and that's what we are. And so the plant is a reflection of the seed. If I plant melons, I'm going to get melons, right? I'm not going to get potatoes, not in the nature of the seed, because the seed knows what it is. But the beautiful thing about a plant that has seeds is that they produce many fruit, and the many fruit have many seeds. If anybody ever ate a watermelon or cantaloupe or honeydew or cushaw melon, any one of them, and any of the ones I didn't even call, there are an abundance of seeds in the one fruit. And the one seed that I plant that grows a watermelon vine may produce, depends on my soil, depends on my nurturing, it could produce 10, 20 watermelons off one seed on the vine. So that's how this thing works. This thing called life, this thing called a relationship with God, this thing called humanity. There is a relationship. There are some things that we have to do, that we have to allow, and there are things that we have to be for it to really take hold. And so when we are able to do that, when we are able to have a good seed and put it in some great soil, we get a wonderful plant. Be that life, be that a job, be that a relationship, be that a community. And that's what we're trying to do here, is that we are looking to create a world that works for everyone, for all things, everybody. Not just the humans, but the watermelon plants as well. Because I like watermelon, and I like all the melons, even the exotic melons, because it gives me this sense of wonder. And that's how we have to approach life. And so if we look at this last slide here as a summary, it says this: spiritual power responds by correspondence and respondence, with or alongside, rather than on behalf of or from out yonder. Now we just hold that right there for a minute. This is not something outside yourself. This is not something that you got to call down the street to or get on your phone and try to get on long distance. It's right inside of us. This spirit, this activation that happens is here. And when we are able to say yes and take that first step, as Dr. King said, without seeing the rest of the staircase, now we're moving. So when we look at the last part of that slide, it says this: the thing itself within us works as a process of unfolding, such as when we set out to learn a new skill. Right away, we can picture ourselves doing the new thing. But in order to actually do it, play the guitar, paint a picture, a series of steps is gradually, incrementally taken as we master the fretboard or the paintbrush. Another way of putting this is that when we involve ourselves with an idea, in order to then evolve the idea into a tangible form, into a tangible thing. So the answer is the process. The answer is understanding the process. And the answer is then again, engaging the process. That's how this works. It is a process of life that we have to engage in, that we have to move forward in. And so when we are able to do that, we can step forward with this call to action for this week. You know, we can't go anywhere without call to action. And I know I'm alone today, but this is a good thing for me. So if we could bring up that call to action for this week, we have two things here. What seeds of greatness do you have in your storehouse that have not been planted? What seeds of greatness in your storehouse do you have that have not been planted? I'll just leave you with that question. And then the next thing is, if you done found the seed, have you checked your soil lately? Have you checked your environment? Have you checked your friends? Are you eating right? Are you exercising? Are you having meaningful conversations? Are you developing great relationships? People that support you, and also people that call you out. See, sometimes we just want people to pat us and be good to us and tell us how great we are, although we may be screwing up royally. You need somebody every time to say, "Ooh, you stepped out of line right there. You need to come back. You need to come back." That's what it is. We have a balance of life, and that's what this process is. When these things are in balance, life is wonderful. Life is grand, and life is most definitely worth living. And so, as we get this affirmation for this week that we use to anchor these ideas into our lives, into our minds, and into our hearts, we step forward this week saying, my life is guided by the divine creative process. Therefore, all things are possible. All things are possible. And so with that, let's go into prayer. So let's just take a deep breath. And we know that this breath is the breath of life. It is that infinite spirit, that thing itself that is in, through, and around all, that activates, that elevates, that engages the spirit within all things to say yes, to believe, to step forward in faith, to hold fast to the understanding that there is a power and a presence in the universe and that we can use it. And that when we allow ourselves to surrender to a higher power, to a greater understanding, to an infinite intelligence that creates worlds that are even 8 billion years old, we know that there is something in the air, something in the water that allows us to be exactly who we are. And so as we embrace that and we allow that to just sink into our hearts and minds and into our very soul, we are planting this idea of the greatness of God and the greatness of us. Because we are the seeds of the divine and we are a true reflection. We just got to be put in the right environment. We have to drink the great waters of life. And when we do, we awaken to our true selves. We awaken to the idea of, as Dr. King would say, the beloved community. And we begin to live out the dreams of my brother and my sister. I am your keeper. And so with that idea of knowing that each one can teach one and we can all hold each other accountable and that we can also uplift each other when we're needed, we just give thanks. We give thanks for the idea of a balanced life. We give thanks for the idea that I got someone to praise me when I need it and to correct me when I'm wrong. That's a blessing. That's a thanksgiving. And so we give thanks for that. And so I give thanks for everyone that's here today, everyone that's on the transmission, and everyone in the studio today, and church, and everywhere that are hearing the word of God and saying yes. And so with that, I release, I let go. I know that this prayer is absolutely so because it is divine law that activates it. And so with that, I release and know that this is so, and so it is. Amen. So as we try to get our garden together today, as we get into this creative process, I want to say I thank everyone for their gracious gifts and time and talent to CSL Denver. We're so grateful that you are here with us, whether online or in person, and that you're supporting the center. And we hope you very soon can show up in person, because we are trying and doing a mighty work of creating a community where people are heard, where people can be themselves and provide to others. And so as you look, run across the bottom of the screen, you will see how many different ways you can give, whether it's through text or whether you go to the website and hit the donate button, or whether you just send it to the P.O. box. But however you give, we appreciate it. And so if you take that tithe or place your hand over your heart just to symbolize the deep-seated feelings, and repeat our customary affirmation, this perfect gift, certain in blessing and touching. I messed that up. I got ahead of myself. This perfect gift is spirit informed, circulating and blessing all that it touches. Freely I give and joyously I receive, and so it is. Amen.
That is a mouthful. Thank you, Reverend Elzia. Just a few announcements. As we've been announcing since back in December, we are meeting every week in person here at the, I can't think of the name of it, the Grant Street Historic Community Center at 216 South Grant. So please come and see us in person. We would just love to reconnect and connect with new people. So, and now for some really great news. We are very excited and honored to have one of our favorite musicians, Jamie Lula, as our Sunday service guest musician live and in person next Sunday, January 22nd. And we would love for you to join us that day. We are actually going to be meeting in the sanctuary in the big room. So we're just expecting all kinds of people to show up and celebrate with us. For those who are familiar with Jamie's music, you know we will have a great time. For those who haven't heard of Jamie, you're in for a real treat. And now is the perfect time to come and hear his voice and music. And he will also have his CDs available for sale. Also, if you would like to hear some good news of the world to offset some of the other stuff going on, we have a link on our Facebook page called And Now the Good News. This program is put together by New Thought Media Network and airs on Fridays at 5 p.m. Mountain Time, or you can watch them anytime during the week. Just go to the Center for Spiritual Living Denver Facebook page and click on any of the links that say, And Now the Good News. And just so you know, New Thought Media Network has over 40 hours of weekly broadcast programs, including prayer time at 8:15 a.m. and p.m. every day, Wisdom of the Mystics, and Finding the Joy in the Journey, along with New Thought Radio, to name only a few. They have also recently added a prayer time in Spanish, as well as 40 Days to Love in both Spanish and English. Did I get that right? Good. So that's something for everybody. So just go to www.ntmedia.org, or you can go onto their Facebook page and find all of their programs. So welcome to 2023. We know that as we move into this year and all the experiences that it holds, the Divine Beloved is guiding and loving each and every one of us. We so look forward to meeting in person every Sunday as well as online. And now let's close out with a prayer for who we really are by Chris Chickering.
This is a prayer for the love within us. This is a prayer to release our hearts. This is a prayer that we carry with us. This is a prayer for who we really are. sunshine. We are what we believe. We are hope. We are promise of everything that's yet to be. We are bliss. We are laughter. We are flowers in the spring. We are life, ever flowing. And these are the words that we will sing. This is a prayer for the love within us. This is a prayer to release our hearts. This is a prayer that we carry with us. This is a prayer for who we really are. We are strong. We are fearless. We find the comfort in our souls. We are real, we are open to the destiny that's ours to hold. This is a prayer for the love within us. This is a prayer to release our hearts. This is a prayer that we carry with us. This is a prayer for who we really are. We are here, we are present in every moment that we breathe. We are peace, we are freedom, and this is a song for you and me, yeah. This is a prayer for the love within us. This is a prayer to release our hearts. This is a prayer that we carry with us. This is a prayer for who we really. This is a prayer for the love within us. This is a prayer to release our hearts. This is a prayer that we carry with us. This is a prayer